So this will be like my second live ever. So if everyone lets me know how it's going, or if I'm doing okay, that'd be great. But other than that, I guess we got a couple more minutes to just chill. Oh, you know, these prices are killing me, but other than that, maybe some heat. This guy's still being a clown, thinking that he knows stuff about Canada and such. This is way back in January, apparently. So he was even a cloudy back then. While we're chilling, waiting for everyone to go pee and grab snacks and such, I'm going to quickly plug my other stuff. So I'm also on TikToks and the YouTubes and the X's and the Facebooks. Those ones can all be looked up under David Hennessy, We the People. And welcome to the live. If you're here, cool beans. If not, you should be. This is Mark Clowney, and we're going to see what he's got to say about Canada's youth and whatever such stuff he's got to say going on today. Let's let her rip.
Canada's forging a new strategic partnership with China.
China remains the essential stake in helping Russia continue the war against Ukraine.
Yesterday, Russia launched one of its largest drone and missile attacks on Ukraine in 4 years. Canada unequivocally condemns these indiscriminate attacks.
So in Russia's defense, since no one wants to point out the obvious here, is there not someone that's backing them financially and weaponry? But I could be wrong. Let's see what else they got.
A favourite source suggesting that 60% of the Russian airfare has been covertly bankrolled by China.
Yeah, that's fucking smart. They're definitely being bankrolled by somebody, and if it's gotta be fucking China, why the fuck not, right? China's running out of space to put their nuclear fucking shit. Fucking little cocksuckers want to put a nuclear bomb in Canada.
Speaking of Mark Carney, he posted something, and it's to do with Russia.
I bet you. Oh, wait, one sec. I bet you these two fucking clowns are from Alberta. I could be wrong.
Do with Ukraine, but I think we need to remind everybody that it has less to do with Ukraine and Russia and more to do with China. So let's take a look. So,
fucking right, it has everything to do with
May
China.
14th at 11:55 a.m. Yesterday, Russia launched one of its largest drone and missile attacks on Ukraine in 4 years. Canada unequivocally condemns these indiscriminate attacks. I express my deepest condolences to those injured and everyone mourning their loved ones. Canada stands with Ukraine as it defends its...
Well, we send them financial backing and weapons. Congratulations, fucking Canada, you fucking scroats.
against this unconscionable aggression, and we will work with allies to sustain pressure on Russia to bring this conflict to an end. And I'm very surprised that I did not find the word catalyze in there. But keep in mind the words Russia, launched, and drones. Just keep those words in mind, okay? Because those are going to be very important in a minute.
Fucking doorknob. Huh?
It's not your fault.
Oh,
It's
ew.
his stick that's causing the problems. Now, Dr. Squatch, natural ingredients.
I do not promote this
well-fed,
AI drone.
aluminum-free.
She is a
Dr.
fembot
Squatch deodorant
from
for your
Austin
stick
Powers.
talking.
He posted this a little bit earlier. So this was on May 6th. And he says, Canada and Europe share the values of freedom, rule of law, democracy, and pluralism. These values.
Wait, hold the fuck up. This guy fucking promotes freedom? Is that why I can't fucking talk shit about him anymore? Or if he does promote freedom, well then fuck you, you fucking clown, you piece of shit.
Are the foundation of what we are building together. It's funny. It's not very often that I like the option see less in Facebook, but whenever I'm looking at one of his posts, I do like that option. And even in the transcripts,
Yeah, I wish we could see less of this fucking clown's fucking face everywhere. Using our tax money fucking to go to China and Europe, fucking $28 billion worth of taxpayers' money, the cocksucker.
of the video that this was actually from, you can see it starts with our shared values are boring. As we know, one of the countries that Mark Carney loves to visit is the UK. And he loves getting praise from King Charles. He loves advertising that King Charles has validated appointments of the Governor General. He loved that.
Well, yeah, because after he already fucked over Europe, he's got to be on their dick now that he owns Canada and send them all their fucking money. As well as print a whole bunch of fucking money and up to fucking taxes.
All the pomp and circumstance that King Charles had when he came here to give the throne speech. And he loves to share how European Canada could be. Okay. Just for the sake of argument, I believe Mark Carney. Just for the sake of argument, I agree with Mark Carney.
Let's just pretend.
We share values. We share the same opinions. We share the same.
Remind me to throw up a video of what's going on in Europe. Just a real quick little fucking doodad of what's going on in Europe right now. And see if that's the best outlook on Canada as far as the people are concerned. But let's see what these guys gotta say.
Thoughts with our brothers and sisters in the UK government. This is interesting. UK imposes 100 new sanctions targeting Russia's revenues and military supplies. So, if we share our values with the UK, then clearly we should share this. The UK government has implemented 100 new sanctions designed to hit Russia's revenues and military supplies, including against its so-called shadow fleet carrying oil and electronics companies. Sanctions have also been imposed on the China-based Shenzhen Blue Hat International Trade Corporation and its Russian co-owners. Why is this important? Well, it's important because shortly after those sanctions, the PRC...
Alright, time the fuck out for a second. This is driving me fucking bananas. Is that guy's fucking daughter? Or is that this guy's fucking wife? Or is it his sister? Or are they kissing cousins? Not like I actually care, it's just bugging my head, so I thought I'd say it.
lost its mind and was jumping up and down about these sanctions that UK was actually putting against these companies. Well, why would you be upset about that, PRC? It's not you, right? It's not.
That article they just had up, I don't know how accurate the fuck it is, so I'm not going to condone it, because I 100% guarantee that they had to translate that. And if they didn't type it out, Google did. And Google lies.
one of your state-owned companies, right? It's not like China has been helping Russia in the war of Ukraine, right?
Oh wait, we already
wait.
talked about that a few weeks
Oh wait,
ago.
Chinese now have just discreetly built supply line, literal supply lines, railway lines that go to drone factories
You got more if you
in
want it.
Russia. Yeah,
You got more if you
just
want
it. I don't think there is
60%
any
of the
more
Russian airfare has been covertly bankrolled
There, bud.
by China.
Well, I think things have changed.
Is absolutely useful for China to keep
Well, that's what I've
the
heard.
West occupied in Ukraine. It's also quite useful for China to keep Russia occupied in Ukraine.
It's eyes wide open.
China didn't instigate Russia's attack on
Did Canada not just make a bunch of deals with fucking China for like resources and shit? So like our resources are going to fucking China and then they're reselling what they make to Russia to continue the war. Wow, I'm a fucking genius.
Ukraine. But what it's done is enable its continuation.
Well, I think things have changed.
It suits China to have this war ongoing.
It's eyes wide open.
You'd be very happy to see Europe tied up spending a lot of its GDP on defence against something that looks like a frozen conflict around Ukraine, Belarus, etc., etc.
The negotiations that we've had with China have been more predictable and much more stable.
The world in which we need to start relying on China, this is not a world where human rights matter.
Yeah.
This is not a world where democracy matters.
you said it, Christian.
Yeah, no fucking shit, it doesn't matter. Because if you look at what they do to their people, they make them live in cardboard fucking boxes and call it fucking home. First of all. And on top of that, whatever they say goes. So, like, if they decide, hey, you're not having your fucking guns, no matter what kind of fucking gun it is, guess what you guys aren't gonna fucking have? Your guns. And if they decide to sell Alberta, guess what? You won't have a fucking choice in the matter. So we should stop fucking listening to Carney because he's a fucking clown who's trying to sell us out to China. Which is fucked up.
Oh, wait. Right. You said it, Michael. Oh, no. No, I'm running out of liberals. You said it.
We're behind on.
Well, he's gone. But okay, so that was the Air Marshal, the UK Air Marshal, giving a briefing. Recall what he said right there, and what he told you to remember from the beginning. Launched drones. 60% of Russians' drones are coming from China. So Mark Carney stands up.
And about 99.9% of resources that are used in those drones comes from fucking Canada. So, what are you actually trying to say here? We're saying that the war is fucking bad, but then we're condoning it through backdoor channels? That's fucked up, man.
And he wants to look all noble and statesmanlike and condemn the attacks on Ukraine from Russia. Well, if you really believe that, why are you entering into a strategic partnership with the country that is supplying Russia with all of their drugs? So you can't really...
See? Told you.
can't really say
That's
that
fucked
anymore,
up.
Mr. Carney. You're actually going into that, as Joby says, with eyes wide open. Because this is not a secret, and I know it's not a secret, and people can say, well, that was from February, Okay, fine. Well, let's go back to the UK Parliament in October of 2025 and see what they had to say there. You haven't seen this yet.
So what I'm hearing is fucking Mark Carney's not only a clown, but he's also a fucking fork-tongued fucking piece of shit who's playing both sides of the fucking compass here.
The recent SCO summit was striking in its failure to mention Russia's illegal war of aggression against Ukraine and the local Baroness Bennett manner partly drew our attention to some of the.
And yeah, everyone let me know how they like my setup. You're kind of just chilling in my living room right now. I'll show you sometime, it'll be cool.
Russia to reduce Putin's isolation on the world stage. We consistently challenge China and other countries' political and military support for Russia, which prolongs this war and isn't in China's interest. China remains the essential state in helping Russia continue the war against Ukraine. That is the government's view. The UK continues to call on China to use its influence to support peace and stability, and that includes urging President Putin to end the war, withdraw Russian troops from Ukraine, and respect international law. And with regard to the noble Lord Bruce's observation, the government works.
So the way I feel on most wars, and wars in general, are if this country and this country want to have a war, then this president and this president should just go to a fucking designated spot, just like in high school, you know? We'll meet up in the parking lot after school, and you're getting your fucking ass whipped, buddy. Yeah, that's what they should do. Just have a big old boxing match, duke it the fuck out, winner takes all. Stop fucking dinking around with all this bullshit.
Closely, not only with European partners, but with G7.
Oh, and I was gonna mention this before, but see that water bottle right there? It's probably really hard to see, but maybe I can zoom in before I post it on YouTube or something. But that bottle of water right there, I can 100% guarantee that's not fucking tap water, because tap water doesn't fucking hydrate dick shit all anymore. And these guys are sweating fucking bullets. Sweating like a fucking rape hound going to general population in jail.
This is the government whip. So he's basically the representative from the government who's answering questions, right? Now this is from the Grand Committee, and this is the Grand Committee of the Whip. So basically, what this is the equivalent of is we have something called the Committee of the Whole in Canada, where it's run like a committee, but it is in the House of Commons. So committees are normally like 10 people, whereas the Committee of the Whole can be all 343 members of the Parliament. Now, they can also have a Committee of the Whole in the Senate, which is our equivalent of the UK's House of Lords. So the Grand Committee is basically the Committee of the Whole in the UK version of the Senate.
Which is the House of Lords.
Yes. So, he said some striking things right there. And the one that jumped out to me is basically essentially summarized as saying, the only reason Russia can continue this war is because of China.
And Canada.
So, when the UK, in their government, is saying that, and then a couple of months later, their air marshal is saying, essentially, the actual data that is backing that up, that China is supplying 60% of Russians' drones that they're using to attack Ukraine with, as well as other military hardware. And then when they say, you know, we're trying to work with other G7 countries to affect the same pressure on China, and then Canada goes off and secures a strategic partnership with China.
Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China, a new strategic partnership between Canada and China, a partnership that will increase trade and catalyze new investment. Last week's new strategic partnership
fucking
with
clown.
China will make available tens of thousands.
And time out for a sec. Does this not look like a fucking North Korea fucking set to you guys? Looks like one to me. I guarantee that's a fucking green screen. And he's an undead fucking transformer from fucking hell.
Of affordable electric vehicles in Canada.
One party then says, oh, well, we share the values with our friends over in Europe and the UK. And then feigns this this false remorse by saying, oh, it's so terrible that Russia's attacking the UK. We're trying to work and bring about an end to this war however we can. Well, how is that possible, Mark Carney?
Right, we just agreed to buy, what, 50,000 cars for China per year?
And that's set to go up.
Right. So we're putting money in.
And that's not including the fucking nuclear fucking power plant they want to put in. The fucking data center they want to fucking put in. All the resources we're fucking sending them. We're pretty much fucking already sold out at this point. You can almost kiss your rights good fucking bye.
To the Chinese economy. And they are taking that money and supplying drones to Russia. And then we, on the other side, are supplying Ukraine with money. It doesn't make sense.
So yeah, that's some downright fuckery bullshit right there if you think about it logically. Cause you're gonna fucking sponsor them through backdoor fucking channels. You're gonna go live on national fucking television and tell everybody that, oops, I don't think it's right that China's supplying these fucking guys, right? But then in return, you're just gonna turn around and fucking let them do just that, and still sell them fucking natural resources and the shit to make their fucking drones, as well as buy electronic cars from them. That's fucking some horse shit, man. Canada, we gotta step it up. Something needs to happen here. That's fucking weird, man. But, yeah, I'm gonna just hang out. We got a next video prompt up on where Canadian and North American law was first discovered and came from. But I think we'll just chillax and maybe throw some conversation around before we get into this. Does anyone else smoke some weeds out there? Or we got some weed smokers in the crowd tonight? We got some 420 friendlies out there. Yeah, perfect, yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? Anyone else a toker smoker? Midnight choker? Is it dark? Can everyone see me? Is everything good? Do I need to spicing up the atmosphere around myself, or are we all good? Everyone good? Is it a chill atmosphere? You kind of just chilling smoking, just like back in high school when you went to that creepy guy's house and smoked fucking bongs with him and shit. Never really cared back then. Except I'm cool and you get to watch videos with me and shit. No other smokers, huh? No other smokers. Just a little FYI for anyone joining or watching prior to this live. Any of these stupid ass fucking commercials that come on over here, yeah, I don't condone or sponsor any of that bullshit. I'm just not paying fucking YouTube what it costs to not have commercials, because that's done fucked up. Remember when YouTube used to be free and you could just post and laugh at people's videos all the time for free with no ads? The good old days. Back when much music used to be cool. TRL used to be on it. You know? The good old days. Cheers, crowd. Cheers. Cheers. So before we start this next clip, is there anyone out there that feels like Canada's in a fucking state of crisis? Kind of like before COVID and all that other bullshit that we're not supposed to say? If so, you should drop a comment. Let me hear about it. We'll talk about it. Try to make this as interactive and as cool as possible. Like I said, you guys are just kind of chilling out in my living room right now. So, yeah. Let's start this fucking bullshit.
Welcome to RBC's Benefit or Basic, a game that dares to ask random people if they even know what their bank is doing for them. A bank offering
I don't sponsor you. This isn't free advertising.
Saving on gas. It's a benefit. You can save up to 7 cents per liter with your linked RBC card at Petrochem. Check out RBC.
Imagine a government so advanced, so brilliantly designed, that it would inspire the founding fathers of the United States over 1,000 years after its creation. A democracy where women held the ultimate political power. A constitution memorized through intricate beadwork and passed down through generations.
Oh shit, I guess I should do a quick introduction. So this here is going to be a little talk on the Confederation, the Iroquois Federation, and maybe some brief history on how it applies to politics today. Along with me jumping in like a crazy person every once in a while. Anyhow, let's continue.
Without a single written word. A alliance so mighty that European superpowers would bow before its authority and beg for its favor. This is not a fantasy. This is not mythology. This is a true story of the Haudenosaunee.
That fucking thing there looks like a pretty cool fucking house to live in. I know it doesn't have maybe some of the modern essentials that most people are looking for, but that's beautiful.
The people of the Longhouse, known to history as the Iroquois Confederacy, long before the Declaration of Independence was signed, before the Magna Carta was sealed, before most of the world had even conceived of representative democracy. 5 nations came together under a great white pine and buried their weapons of war. They created something the world had never seen, a perfect union, a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Sound familiar? Benjamin Franklin studied them. Thomas Jefferson learned from them. The United States Congress acknowledged their influence, yet their story has been hidden, diminished, nearly erased from the pages of history. But tonight, we resurrect the truth.
So it's almost nearly erased from motherfucking history, but doesn't our laws kind of roughly based on that right now? Except the people and for the people isn't a thing anymore. It's like for companies and for the money. That's fucked up. Stop using our laws and calling it yours and mutating it to fit your pockets, you fucking chintzy bastards.
Tonight, we journey back to a time when the forests of the Northeast belonged to the most powerful alliance in North America. Tonight, we discover how 6 nations became one mind, one heart, one unstoppable force that would shape the destiny of an entire continent. This is a story of warriors and peacemakers, of visionaries and survivors, of 1,000 years of power.
Funny, I didn't hear this lady say savages once. Or indigenous. Or Indian. Or native. What? The native peoples all had a name? Yeah, imagine that, right? Cool shit.
Unity and resilience that echo into our present day. The great law of peace is calling. Will you answer? They call themselves Haudenosaunee, the people of the Longhouse, but the world knows them as the Iroquois, a name given by their enemies that somehow stuck through centuries of history. 6 nations united as one. The Mohawk keepers of the eastern door.
That's me. I'm Mohawk. Just so anyone was curious or whatnot. Yeah, I'm Mohawk. Nice to meet you.
Oneida, people of the standing stone. The Onondaga, keepers of the central fire. And the Wampum Wreck.
And just for added coolness, see this little fella? Here. See his little butt wiggle? Yeah, he's a turtle. And I'm part of the Turtle Clan. And I'm also Mohawk. Yeah, that's a lot to remember. But that's me. Howdy ho.
The Cayuga, people of the Great Swamp. The Seneca, keepers of the western door and the largest of the nations. And the Tuscarora, who joined the Confederacy in the early 18th century after fleeing colonial violence in the Carolinas, transforming the 5 nations into the 6 nations. Together, they controlled a territory that stretched from the Hudson River to the Great Lakes, from the St. Lawrence River to the mountains of Pennsylvania. Their influence...
I know what you're wondering to yourselves. So these little savage Indian people were able to govern all this land without modern technologies? Yeah. We did. Super fantastic, wicked, awesome, cool, right? But history would let you believe that we were just stupid Indians that didn't know too much about nothing.
Reached even further. From the Atlantic coast to the Mississippi River, nations trembled at the mention of Haudenosaunee warriors. European empires, France and England and the Netherlands, courted their alliance like desperate suitors seeking the hand of a powerful queen. Today, the Haudenosaunee nations still exist. Their territories are smaller now, reduced to reservations scattered across New York, Wisconsin.
I don't know how many native tribes out there that aren't secluded on reservations due to some fucked up reason. Right? But we won't get into the treaties and all that bullshit right now. Let's just stick to what we're here for. And that's listening to where the government got their governance from.
Oklahoma and the Canadian provinces of Ontario and Quebec, but their sovereignty remains. Their government continues. Their languages, though endangered, still echo through longhouses and council fires. Their traditions, though tested by centuries of oppression, burn bright in the hearts of their descendants. This is not a story of the past. This is a story of survival, of adaptation, of a people who refuse to disappear even when the world tried to erase them. This is a...
I don't know who's reading this, but what I think she meant to say there was disappear. Not disappear. But I could be fucking wrong again.
Story that belongs not just to the Haudenosaunee,
Disappear.
but to all of us.
I think she was
Because
trying
the
to
principles
embrace
they
her
created,
native.
the democracy they built, the peace they forged, these things changed the world forever.
Oh, I don't know if you guys can see it when I pause it. But if you can see, that's a little boy right there. Do you see how cool his hair looks? See when I unpause it.
So let us begin at the beginning. Let us travel
titties.
back to a time of blood and chaos, to the darkness that came
Next
before
time.
the light. Let us meet the visionaries who dared to dream of something better. Before the Great Peace, there was only war. The land that would become the heart of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy knew nothing but violence and grief. The 5 nations, not yet united, turned their weapons against each other in an
So this is like pre-white person, pre-English settler, whatever, what don't ya? Just for those who are unaware. Not underwear. Unaware.
endless cycle of revenge and bloodshed. Villages burned, crops withered in fields abandoned by the dead. Children grew up knowing only fear and loss. The mourning wars consumed everything. When a person died, their clan demanded retribution. An enemy must be captured or killed to ease the grief of the bereaved. But each death sparked another.
So they did the old-fashioned thing where they used to say, hey, let's get some blood for blood. But I believe they learned from their mistakes. But let's see.
Another round of mourning, another war party, another cycle of violence that spiraled without end. The people were trapped in darkness. Some say they had forgotten what peace even looked like. Mothers wept for sons who would never return. Elders despaired that their people would destroy themselves completely. The spirits of the forest mourned alongside them. But in this darkness, a light was born. Among the Huron people, far to the north, a child came into the world under mysterious circumstances. His mother was a virgin, the legend.
Hey, wait a fucking minute here. Does that not sound like a story we heard somewhere else? In Christianity or the biblical texters or whatever the fuck they are?
And say, visited by a messenger from the Creator. The grandmother, horrified by this impossible birth, tried 3 times to kill the infant. 3 times she threw him through a hole in the ice into the frozen river below. 3 times he appeared the next morning.
But why did she try to kill her baby? The poor little innocent fucker. It was probably like the otters or something like, hey man, you dropped this. Take it back. We don't want it in our lake. Stop polluting it. Way back then. The little old otters. Fuck. But 3 times she tried to plop this kid in some ice water and he said, nah, I'm good. I ain't gonna fuck with that.
Alive and healthy, cradled in his mother's arms. The grandmother understood then that this child was touched by the divine. He grew into a...
Whoa, you should definitely not fucking touch children. I don't give a fuck who's doing it. But, that's cool. We got an Indian Jesus.
Man unlike any other. The peacemaker, he would be called, for he came with a message that would transform the world. He spoke of the good mind, of righteousness.
His first message was, hey, don't plug me back in that fucking water. It's cold as shit, eh?
And of the great peace that could unite all people under one law. But the peacemaker had a problem. He stuttered severely. His message was powerful, but his voice could not carry it across the nations. He needed a spokesperson, a partner who could speak the words that would end the war.
So relating this to modern day bullshit, we would call this in modern day politics campaigning, right? So if you're campaigning, you would send a group of people out across the nations to spread information, right? But now we have TVs and cell phones and stuff, so it's done like over short periods of time. And then they also have time to like shit talk the other fucking person as well. Back in those times, they had one fucking message. And that's if you fucking made it there. Because of all the wildlife and all the rival tribes and stuff. But let's see what happened to this feller.
He found that partner in the most unlikely place. Among the Onondaga, there lived a man named Hiawatha, but this was not the Hiawatha of Longfellow's poem. That romantic fiction bears almost no resemblance to the real man, the tortured soul who would become the peacemaker's greatest ally. Hiawatha had lost everything. His daughters, all of them, had died under mysterious and terrible circumstances. Some versions say they were killed by the machinations of Tadoroho, an Onondaga chief so twisted by evil and grief that his body had become deformed, his hair writhing with serpents, his mind consumed by hatred and dark.
So, I believe the person she's referring to in this right here yonder is, the witch doctor. He was the one that apparently took the two daughters or whatnot. So, that's decent. At least we know a little bit about who it is now. Anyhow.
Magic. Hiawatha's grief drove him to madness. He wandered the forest, unable to function, unable to think of anything but his losses. He was the embodiment of the morning wars, a man destroyed by the very cycle of violence and death that plagued all the nations. Then the peacemaker found him. In the forest, Hiawatha had gathered white shells from the lake bottom, stringing them into patterns that somehow eased his grief. The peacemaker saw what Hiawatha was doing and understood its profound significance. These shells, these patterns, they could hold memory, they could hold law, they could hold the peace itself. The peacemaker performed the first condolence ceremony, using Hiawatha's shell strings to wipe away his tears, to clear his throat, to restore his mind.
That's good that Mr. Hiawatha was all nice and content with being rubbed down with seashells, but ow, the hell, man, that would fucking hurt. But I guess if you go to war every morning, a couple seashell rub downs wouldn't be so bad. But let's see what else is going on.
He gave Hiawatha purpose again. Together, they would carry the message of peace to all the nations. But first, they had to face the greatest obstacle, Tadoroho, the twisted sorcerer whose very name inspired terror, who opposed peace with every fiber.
See that? See that? Where is it? That ugly fucker right there? Yeah, so that's the guy I was talking about. He's the witch doctor who had the serpents for hair, who allegedly killed Mr. Hiawatha's daughters and such. Back to the story now.
Of his corrupted being. The peacemaker and Hiawatha approached him not with weapons, but with words, with patience, with compassion. They understood what others did not. Tadoroho was not evil incarnate. He was grief incarnate. He was the living embodiment of what war had done to all of them. To transform...
Yeah, so no offense, if you can get this evil person on your side, it would definitely make it easier to, have some unity amongst the peoples, correct? Considering he's so evil and all this other bullshit. But, let's just see what's Gucci.
Him was to transform the cycle itself. 3 times they approached him. 3 times he refused. But on the 3rd approach, they offered him something no one else had. Not death, not submission, but honor, respect, a place of importance in the new world they were building. If Tadadaho would accept the great law of peace, he would become the firekeeper of the Grand Council. His name would be remembered forever, not as a monster, but as a founding father of the Confederacy. Each future leader of the Onondaga would take his name and title, transforming his legacy from darkness into light. And Tadoroho accepted. The
Yeah, that would have been freaking awesome, eh? So you get like generational a reward for helping keep the peace, you know? That's a great fucking contract to be in.
Peacemaker and Hiawatha combed the serpents from his hair. They straightened his twisted body. They healed his mind. In some versions, this was literal, in others, metaphorical, but the meaning is the same. They transformed the embodiment of war into the guardian of peace. With Tadadaho's acceptance, the final barrier fell. The Mohawk had already joined. The Oneida had come aboard. The Cayuga had accepted the message. The Seneca had seen the wisdom of unity. Now,
Woo!
the Onondaga,
people
the
all
most
just
central
cruising
and perhaps
together.
the most powerful of the nations, joined the Great Peace. The peacemaker gathered the chiefs under a great white pine tree. The tree of peace, its 4 white roots, stretched to the 4 directions, offering shelter to any nation that would follow the path of peace and righteousness. At its top perched an eagle, ever watchful for threats to the Confederacy. The chiefs brought their weapons of war, their clubs and their arrows, and they buried them in a deep pit beneath the tree. Over that pit they planted the white pine, its roots intertwining with the buried weapons, holding them fast in the earth. As long as the great law stood, those weapons of war would remain buried. The peacemaker spoke the great law of peace, and the chiefs memorized every word. Hiawatha crafted the first wampum belts, strings of purple and white shell beads woven into patterns that recorded the law, the structure of the Confederacy, the rights and responsibilities of each nation. These were not mere decoration.
If anyone knows where they got them purple beads from, that'd be cool to know. It'd be a cool little tidbit of history to share with everyone. Because as far as I'm aware, Ontario and places like that don't really have purple beads, but I could be mistaken.
These were their constitution, readable by those trained to interpret their patterns. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy was born, and the world would never be the same.
She almost got that right.
What the peacemaker created was nothing short of revolutionary, a government so sophisticated, so carefully balanced that it would function effectively for over 1,000 years and counting. A democracy.
So before we jump into all the political stuff behind here, is there any one who doesn't really understand what's kind of going on here if you just jumped on or whatever? But they made a whole Confederacy law system and the law of peace, just a couple few nations of what settlers would call savages. And what they erased from the history books was quite important to their whole politics, so I don't know why they left it all out like that. But I think it's time now we have a little pit stop. So it's that 420 time for all you who don't know. So we'll have a little quick toke and then we'll jump back into the old native politics that the government roughly based their new laws on. What is it? Lay down. My dog thinks the FBI are coming to get us. I don't blame her. So yeah, I don't know if anyone dropped any comments from before or whatnot, but if you could let me know where your grocery store's prices are at. That'd be cool. Oh yeah. Well, we're about to toke up. Join us. Welcome. Cheers. Cheers. So what's happening with Canada is a whole lot of bullshit, brother. But right now we're just learning some history on where politics decided to come from for America and Canada. So we're about to jump back into that right now.
That gave voice to the people centuries before European philosophers
Where are you at?
even begin to conceive of such ideas. The Grand Council
Are you
formed
from
the
Canada
heart of
or
Confederacy
US or
governments.
other
50
parts?
chiefs
Canada? Sweet,
called
sweet.
Sachems or Royana, chosen from specific families within specific clans. Each nation sent a delegation. The Mohawks sent 9. The Oneida
You're from Canada
sent 9.
too. Nice.
The Onondaga sent 14. The Cayuga sent 10. The Seneca sent 8. When the Tuscarora joined later, they were adopted as a younger brother to the Oneida and participated through that relationship. But here's what made this system extraordinary. These 50 chiefs were not elected by men. They were not chosen through combat or inherited through male lineage. They were selected by women, specifically by the clan mothers.
That's cool, right? Did anyone know that? That women were the lawmakers back then? Yeah, that'll be interesting if they get to do that, for sure.
The eldest and most respected women of each clan. The clan mothers held the ultimate political power in Haudenosaunee society. They chose the chiefs.
What do you think? Do you think they should build the pipeline, or?
To serve the people with righteousness.
Because in my opinion, if they can't go through the reserves, the only other option is to go up and over, right? And that'll look kind of silly having like a suspended pipeline over top of the reserves and stuff. But I guess they could go under them too.
War. The men might make speeches and cast votes in council, but the women held the strings that moved them all. This was not symbolic. This was real, functional political power in the hands of women at a time when European women were considered property, when they could not own land, could not vote, could not speak in public forums. The clan system.
Yeah, that part there is super interesting because women are still arguing for their rights and stuff today, when Native people just had given them all the rights so that we didn't let our animalistic brains take over, because that didn't seem to be working for the people, right?
And formed the backbone of Haudenosaunee social organization. Each nation was divided into clans, represented by animals: the wolf, the bear, the turtle, the deer, the snipe, the heron, the hawk, the beaver, the eel.
I'm a turtle.
Different nations
See, guys?
had different clans, but certain clans like wolf, bear, and turtle appeared across all nations. Your clan was your family, not just in your village, but across the entire Confederacy. A Mohawk of the Wolf Clan could travel to Seneca territory and be welcomed into the longhouses of Seneca Wolf Clan members as family. This created bonds that transcended national boundaries, weaving the Confederacy together at...
That's an interesting part too, because if we were able to do that now, say that we had like a family member down in like Carolina or across in China or something like that, we could technically go there and be welcome into society just as well as we are here, right? But they also didn't go over there and try to change the Seneca's ways, I would imagine, either. But let's see.
Every level of society, children belonged to their mother's clan. All always. This matrilineal system meant that property, names, and political positions passed through the female line. When a man married, he moved into his wife's longhouse and became part of her clan's family structure. His children were not his clan but hers. This was not a matriarchy in the sense of women dominating men. Rather, it was a carefully balanced system where men and women had distinct but equally important roles. Women controlled domestic space, agriculture, property, and political selection. Men served as chiefs, warriors, and hunters, but neither could function without the other. The Grand Council operated by consensus, not majority rule. This is crucial to understand. A simple majority was not enough to pass a law or make a decision for the Confederacy. All 50 chiefs had to agree, or at least not actively oppose, a measure before it could be adopted. This sounds impossible.
Oh, the law system, or are you talking about the pipeline? Because either way, the pipeline and this worked both ways. Until big corporations got involved and tried to mess with everybody.
Keepers of the eastern and western doors formed one group. The Oneida and Cayuga formed a second group. The Onondaga, Fire Keepers, and the most central nation formed the third group. A proposal would be introduced to the council and first debated by the Mohawk and Seneca. If they reached consensus, they passed it to the Oneida and Cayuga. If that second group agreed, it went to the Onondaga for final consideration. The Onondaga could confirm the decision or send it back for further discussion. If all three groups agreed, the law was adopted. This system forced.
So if everyone didn't agree on this, whatever they were trying to make this law or whatever they were trying to govern, right? It was passed from one group down to the next group, down to the next group, right? So right now we kind of have a system where like the mayors or the politicians of each city or whatever governed by the same law or whatever as the fucking prime minister. Which actually doesn't work in the long run, right? Because if you think about it, not everybody agrees with it. Not every group of people has the time to go down to City Hall and put in a ballot, right? It's like the groups are too spread out now at times just to communicate back and forth amongst each other. But let's see what's Gucci.
Deliberation. It prevented hasty decisions. It ensured that every voice was heard, every concern addressed. It created laws that the entire Confederacy could stand behind.
Yeah, there's multiple different ways they could process the oil in Canada for sure. But if they were deciding to make the pipeline, I don't know how they were going to do it if the Indians or Native people or Indigenous people or whatever they're calling us this week don't allow them to. They might have to go like up and over top of the native reserves or underneath them, right? My thing is if they try to go up and over top of the native reserves and the pipe bursts, right? Now you have not only just like a ground level like leakage or whatever, it's like sprinkling over top of the natives reserve. So like I said, I don't know. It seems like a lot of money just trying to detour the pipeline around them and whatnot, but whatever.
Belts recorded it all. These intricate patterns of purple and white shell beads were far more.
As far as the ocean goes, like I think there's already pipelines and stuff, definitely cable lines underneath the ocean. So I imagine once they hit the ocean part, they'd either just process it and put it on ships, or they could logically just ship it underground if they were able to drop the pipes right under the ocean. But once again, I feel like that's going to be a lot of money. Yeah, it might give them an extra house. But if the pipeline explodes, I think we're all kind of SOL. We're all kind of SOL anyway. Grocery prices are outrageous.
Than art. They were mnemonic devices, constitutional documents, historical records, and treaties all woven into portable form. The Hiawatha Belt, one of the most sacred wampum records, shows the original 5 nations of the Confederacy. 4 white squares represent the Mohawk, Oneida, Cayuga, and Seneca. In the center, a white tree represents the Onondaga, the Firekeeper, the heart of the Confederacy. The pattern is simple but profound, a visual representation of unity and distinct identity existing simultaneously.
So, I don't know, maybe you all can tell me, how many people nowadays do you know would come up with an idea such as like governing a whole bunch of people, right? And just decide to dedicate that whole title and ownership or whatever to another person, right? I don't know too many people that are willing to do that. Yeah, sure, they're still involved, right? But they're not like, they came up with the idea and now they gave it to the Oneida guy. That's kind of cool though. And it was just to get the snakes out of his hair and so he could be on their team. That's cool beans.
Simultaneously, the 2-row wampum given to Dutch colonists in the early 17th century shows 2 parallel purple rows on a white background. The rows represent a Haudenosaunee canoe and a European ship, traveling side by side on the river of life. Neither tries to steer the other's vessel.
When I think she means by rows is like 2 parallel lines or whatever, not like roses as in like the flower and shit. That's I feel like she just kind of messed that up. But yeah, rows like parallel lines. So to symbolize the 2 ships, a canoe and a European ship driving side by side in parallel union.
Respects the other's path. This was the Haudenosaunee vision of coexistence, of mutual respect and non-interference. Wampum keepers, specially trained individuals,
Sorry, I paused it again. I'm super annoying. But I'd like to welcome everybody to the live stream. Howdy everyone. Drop a comment if you're here, if you want to. If not, welcome anyway. We're just learning about some brief history on Canada. Drop a comment. Let me know where you're at. I'm also on YouTube. If you guys want to pop over there sometime, check out my other videos. Got some comedy ones and other bullshit. I'm also on the TikTokers. But anyhow, let's get back to the law here.
Memorize the meaning of each belt, the speeches associated with them, the historical context of their creation. When a belt was presented at council or in negotiations with other nations, the keeper would read its message, reciting from memory the words and agreements it represented. This was their constitution. This was their library. This was their legal code, and it worked with remarkable efficiency for centuries. The great law of
Oh shit. So I just my wife just reminded me that my name on YouTube and TikTok and such is not the same name. So right here I'm Wolf Hennessy. On that other stuff I go by David Hennessy, We the People. And yeah, I like to get the people unified and all talking and try to be one big happy family again in Canada. But Mark Carney's trying to rip us apart, so fuck that guy.
Peace itself. The Kayanarakawa contained over 100 articles covering everything from the selection and duties of chiefs to the process for adopting new nations into the Confederacy, from environmental stewardship to the rights of common people to address the Grand Council. It spoke of the 7 generations principle. When making any decision, the chiefs were instructed to consider the impact on the 7 generations.
Okay, so we're just going to take a big old closer look here. So, This guy here. A lot of steps they gotta go through. 7 generations. Holy fucking hell, man. Let's see what else they got going on.
Generation into the future. Not just immediate consequences, but the long-term effects on their descendants and the land itself. This was sustainably embedded into constitutional law.
So, that's what they're trying to say. Before they pass a law or whatever, they have to look 7 generations ahead. Right? Could you imagine before they have to pass Bill C9 or Bill whatever the fuck they want to pass next week? Right? If they had to wait and see how that would affect 7 fucking generations before they pass something like that, or even the States, or anywhere they have to pass a bill before they do something crazy like, I don't know, not allow us to say whatever the fuck we want, that's crazy, man. That's fucking nuts. But anyhow, back to it.
Hundreds of years before the modern environmental movement would discover the concept. The law protected freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the rights of the people to remove leaders who abused their power. It established a system of checks and balances where...
Oh shit, son. So, Mr. Mark Carney, if this is the law you're governing your fucking country by, which seems to me like that's what you're doing, then the people have a right to take you out of motherfucking power. So you might want to get your shit together, fella. But if this is not the law you're governing your country by, and you decide to law your country by big corporations and fucking all that bullshit, and overseas fucking money and sponsoring wars behind people's back, well then fuck you. Let's get back into this.
No individual or group could accumulate too much authority. It created a government that was both stable and flexible, capable of adapting to new challenges while maintaining its core principles. And perhaps most remarkably, it worked not through force, but through voluntary adherence. The Confederacy had no police force to enforce its laws, no standing army to compel obedience. People followed the great law because they...
I know she's just gonna tell us exactly what I'm gonna say, but like, if they had no cops and law and all this other bullshit, how did they govern themselves? Because like, apparently the only way to govern the people is by putting laws on them and enforcing it with officers and such stuff like that, which I don't feel is right. Pushing law on somebody like that, right? When years before people were governing themselves and just getting along just fine. But once again, we'll see what's going on with the history lesson here. Because yeah, that's fucked up, man. If they can govern themselves back then, I'm sure we can govern it now.
They believed in it because it served them well, because it created a society worth preserving. This was the government that the founding fathers studied. This was the democracy that predated European Enlightenment philosophy. This was a sophisticated political system that the colonial world dismissed as savage.
Yeah, exactly. So why did they deem it as savage and then use it in their democracy and law governing? It kind of seems a little contradicting, if you know what I'm saying.
The Haudenosaunee knew better. They had created something extraordinary, and they had created it not through conquest or divine right, but through wisdom, compromise, and an unwavering commitment to peace and unity. Step inside a longhouse, and you step into the physical embodiment of Haudenosaunee society. These structures, sometimes stretching over 100 feet in length, housed entire extended families under one roof of elm bark and wooden frames. The longhouse was oriented east to west, with doors at each end and smoke holes dotting the peaked roof. Inside, a central corridor ran the length of the building, with raised platforms along both sides, creating living spaces for individual families. Each family had their own fire, shared with the family directly across the corridor. The smoke from these fires rose through the roof holes, but the interior was still perpetually hazy, scented with wood smoke and the earthy smell of dried corn and herbs hanging from the rafters. 20, 30, sometimes 50 or more people lived in a single longhouse, all related through the female line, all belonging to the same clan. The eldest clan mother presided over this domestic kingdom with authority that extended far beyond the walls of her home. Imagine the sound of it. Children playing and arguing, women grinding corn, scraping hides, weaving baskets and crafting pottery, men repairing weapons and tools, telling stories of hunts and battles, elders teaching the young, passing down knowledge through story and song, dogs sleeping by the fires, the whole structure alive with the rhythm of life lived communally. Privacy as we understand it did not exist, but neither did isolation. You were never alone, never without support, never outside the embrace of family. When you were sick, the community cared for you. When you grieved, they mourned with you. When you celebrated, they danced at your side. The longhouse was more than shelter. It was a symbol. The Haud.
Wouldn't that be just awesome if we could all get together, if someone was feeling ill or something, and gather together and sing and dance? That would be fucking awesome, wouldn't it? But no, if someone gets sick nowadays, we like lock them in their house and like shun them like they got the plague or something. To me, that doesn't make sense. I think in someone's time of need, we should all come together and be one united little family, but that's just my opinion, I guess. So, back to this stuff.
The Haudenosaunee called themselves the people of the Longhouse because the Confederacy itself was conceived as one great longhouse stretching across the land. The Mohawk.
Holy shit, I don't know if you guys can see that very well. But the house starts way over here, like, right? And it goes all the way over to here. That's freaking nuts, man. That's one house. That's one whole clan. That's one whole little family of peoples that had a say in what went on in their country. And now every person's allegedly got a say, but nothing's being done about nothing. It's crazy shit.
Guarded the eastern door. The Seneca guarded the western door. The Onondaga tended the central fire. All the nations lived together under one roof, distinct families, in a shared home. Outside the longhouse, the landscape of a Haudenosaunee village bustled with activity. Fields of corn stretched toward the forest edge. The tall stalks interplanted with climbing bean vines and sprawling squash plants in a technique so effective.
So, I don't know if anyone's aware on how to plant stuff. So that technique there, they used to call that the Three Sisters, and you plant them all together and such like that. And then the beans were able to climb up the corn, and you didn't have to process your garden right down and do a whole bunch of, like, put a whole bunch of posts and shit in so the beans had something to climb. The corn already did it for you. That's cool, right?
That colonists would adopt it wholesale. The Three Sisters, they called this agricultural trinity, corn, beans, and squash, planted together in a relationship of mutual support. The corn stalks provided a pole for the beans to climb. The beans fix nitrogen in the soil.
So we not only were able to create some sort of governance, like before policing and regular law systems, we were able to all come together and figure out how productive our crops could be grown together, right? And even they were unified in growth and birth and all that goody of the fucking nature kingdom. That's neat, right?
Oil. Feeding the corn. The squash spread their broad leaves across the ground, shading out weeds and retaining moisture. Together, they produced abundant harvests with minimal labor. This was sophisticated agriculture developed over thousands of years of experimentation and observation. The Haudenosaunee cultivated dozens of varieties of corn, selecting for different characteristics. Flour corn for grinding, flint corn for storage, sweet corn for roasting. Each variety adapted to specific uses and growing conditions. They grew far more than the three sisters.
Did you guys know that? Sometimes when you go to the grocery store and stuff, the corn packages and shit will say like sweet corn or whatever on it. Yeah, there's a whole list of the different corns and what you can use them for and what they're best used for. So when you get like a crappy corn, right, that's usually made for bread, it's probably not going to have the sweetest taste, right? So it could definitely fuck shit up. Especially if you're eating it like sweet corn and it's like made for bread, right? Or like tortilla chips.
Flowers for their seeds and oil, tobacco for ceremonies, herbs for medicine and flavoring, pumpkins and gourds. Wild plants were cultivated in forest gardens, managed landscapes that appeared natural but were actually carefully tended to increase yields of useful species. The women controlled this agricultural wealth. They planted, tended, and harvested the crops. They decided how the surplus would be distributed and stored. This was not merely labor. This was economic and political power in a society where agriculture provided the majority.
So not only did the native women of this community or this confederacy, not only were they able to, help make the laws that govern their confederacy, they were also in charge of the food stock, supplies, and what we got to eat on a day-to-day basis. They had one of the largest roles in women history throughout Native history anyway. I don't know what it's like all over the world. Maybe one day we'll check it out. But for now, let's get back to these ladies.
Majority of calories. Controlling food production meant controlling everything. The rhythm of life followed the seasons. Winter was a time of storytelling, craft work, and ceremonies. Families stayed close to the fires, living off the dried corn, beans, and squash stored in underground pits and hanging from longhouse rafters. This was when the faithkeeper would recite the creation stories, teaching the young about Sky Woman and the birth of the world on Turtle's Back. Spring brought the maple sugar season. Families moved to sugar camps in the forest, tapping the
Maple
trees
sugar.
and boiling the sap into sweet syrup and sugar. This was a time of renewal, of thanksgiving for the tree's gifts, of preparation for the plant.
I don't know how historically accurate these are, these pictures and shit, but that to me looks like a modern day bucket. So I don't think they were using that to boil their shit with. But that could just be me. Maybe they had steel buckets and shit.
Planting season ahead. Summer meant hard work in the fields, but also abundance. Strawberries ripened, the first fruit of the season and cause for celebration with the Strawberry Festival. Green corn ceremonies marked the early harvest. Fishing and gathering supplemented the cultivated crops. Fall brought the main harvest and frantic activity to preserve food for winter. Corn was dried and stored, squash were preserved, beans were shelled and cached, hunting parties left for extended expeditions seeking deer, bear, and elk.
Yeah, then now they could leave for extended periods of time and not get hunted down by the other tribes because they have that cool confederacy and stuff, right? But I'm sure amongst those confederacy groups, they were also trading supplies and stuff, so maybe they'll get into that and we can get a brief look on how their trading supply were to work back in the day.
To provide meat and hides for the cold months ahead, but life was not all work. The Haudenosaunee were master artisans,
Huh. So that's very unlike our law systems nowadays. Apparently you have to work almost 40 hours a week plus, right? Almost every waking hour of your life is dedicated to work. That's just outrageous. And then back then, they made time to sing and dance and get along because of course they didn't have YouTubes and TV and sports and all that cool stuff. Well, they did kind of have sports, but they're not going to get into that probably in this. But they definitely had cool cool traditions with the law and stuff, and like just because it wasn't written down or inscribed on a stone somewhere, what? You guys didn't steal your law systems and governance systems from us? Yeah, come on. And now you're butchering it and using it to benefit your pockets. That's fucked up, guys.
Objects of remarkable beauty and utility. Women wove baskets so tightly they could hold water. They crafted pottery decorated with intricate designs. They embroidered clothing with porcupine quills, dyed in brilliant colors, later adopting glass beads from European trade to create even more elaborate designs. Men carved intricate wooden masks representing forest spirits and disease demons. These false-face society masks were sacred objects, used in healing ceremonies to drive away illness. Each mask was unique, carved directly into a living tree and then carefully removed, a process that infused the mask with the tree's living spirit. They created wampum, the purple and white shell beads that served as both art and communication. Making wampum was painstaking work. The shells had to be collected, cut into small cylinders, drilled with stone or bone awls, polished smooth, and then carefully strung or woven into belts and strings. A single belt might represent hundreds of hours of labor, and they played. Lacrosse, the creator's game, was both sport and spiritual practice.
Alright, so I lied. They did get into sports. But that's cool, right? They made time for this stuff. So they made time for arts and crafts. And then all the winter months were dedicated to, teaching the youth and up-and-coming generations the society rules and such stuff like that. Right? So that's pretty fucking boss. Right? So all through the winter they were able to teach their kids. Right? Well, all summer they got to learn how to tend to the gardens or go hunting or the ways of the people. Right? That's fucking awesome. And now we just stick them in schools and let some stranger raise them after telling them their whole childhood that they shouldn't talk to strangers. I don't know how that's supposed to work out for everyone. Don't talk to strangers, but here, go to school and talk to this complete stranger. They're going to raise you for the next 8 years of your life, and that's only if you don't decide to go to college. Huh. But no, back then they used to let the whole community raise your kid, right? So they could learn from different members of the tribe, different members of the community. And don't forget, they were able to travel in between those other 6 fucking, communities and share knowledge there as well. But let's see what's going on with this again.
Entire villages would compete in matches that lasted for hours or even days, with goals sometimes set a mile apart, hundreds of players on each side, the ball flying through the...
How big's the biggest football field or soccer field? And these motherfuckers are playing for days and running fucking miles through the woods. That's fucking reckless. Holy fucking shit.
People got lazy.
Yeah,
There,
people did get
men
lazy.
running and dodging and checking each other with a physicality that could be brutal. But lacrosse was more than competition. It was medicine. It was prayer. It was training for war. It was a way to resolve disputes between communities without bloodshed. It was entertainment and ritual combined.
The way she was talking is, it sounds like there was definitely some bloodshed going on there. But, no offense, when it comes out to aggression, it's better that they took it out on the sports field as opposed to taking it out at war, which is apparently everyone's go-to nowadays, which is really fucked up, man.
Played to heal the sick, to bring rain, to honor the Creator. The False Face Society was just one of several medicine societies that maintained the spiritual and physical health of the community. These societies possessed sacred knowledge of healing plants, rituals, and songs passed down through generations. When someone fell ill, the appropriate society would be called to perform their ceremonies, donning their masks and rattles to drive away the diseased spirits. The calendar was marked not by numbered months, but by...
Alright, for all those people who just joined and whatever such, hi, howdy, welcome. If I can get a few more subscribers to my YouTube and shit, I will go live to a powwow and everyone can see the culture from a YouTuber's point of view, if that interests anybody. But let's get those likes and subscribes up so we can do the live YouTube thingy. Because, yeah, why not reach the world? We have a voice, we might as well use it. Anyhow, let's see what these guys are up to.
13 moons, each with its own name and associated ceremonies. The midwinter ceremony, lasting for days, marked the new year with purification rites, dream sharing, and the ritual stirring of ashes. The green corn ceremony celebrated the harvest. The strawberry festival gave thanks for the first fruits. Each ceremony reinforced the relationship between the people and the natural world, acknowledging their dependence on the Creator's gifts. Dreams held profound significance. A person who had a powerful dream might share it with the community, and others would work to fulfill the dream's wishes, understanding that dreams were messages from the spirit world that required action in the waking world. This was a culture of reciprocity.
Is there anyone out there that feels like they've probably had important dreams that they feel like no matter what they did, like they had to get it off their chest or whatever, they had to tell somebody about it? Well, maybe if, what if they weren't dreams and they were like little premonitions, and you keeping them to yourself is probably the worst thing you can do. That's what this channel's for. Get that stuff off your chest so it's not weighing on you, and put it out here so we can all talk about it. But let's get back into this stuff.
You gave to the community because the community gave to you. You honored the plants and animals because they gave their lives to sustain.
And I feel like that right there is where Mark Carney took advantage of the people, right? Instead of, you giving back to your community and your community giving back to you, now it's you giving back, or you giving to the community, and the community and or government taking it all from you. in taxes, gas prices, high food costs, housing, right? Because even if you're living on the streets in Canada nowadays, guess what? Well, you still gotta afford to eat, right? You still gotta, at least get a blanket so you're warm. Well, you paid taxes on the blanket. And you're probably paying taxes on the food, right? Because if you go to the farmer's market and then you go to the grocery store, an apple doesn't cost fucking $5. But somehow No Frills and all the big food companies can apparently charge $5 for an apple. That's probably going to go bad in your fridge or on your counter. Anyhow, I'll stop ranting. We can get back to the history.
Yours. You participated in ceremonies not out of obligation, but out of recognition that you were part of a web of relationships extending from the smallest insect to the Creator itself. The Haudenosaunee did not see themselves as separate from or superior to nature. They were part of it, embedded in it, responsible to it. The deer you hunted was your brother. You thanked him for his sacrifice. The corn you planted was your mother. You honored her generosity. The forest was your home, not a resource to be exploited, but a community to be tended. This worldview would clash catastrophically with European ideas of dominion and ownership. But for the Haudenosaunee, it was simply the truth of existence. Everything was connected. Everything had spirit. Everything deserved respect. And when you live by these principles, the world provided everything you needed. Make no mistake, the Haudenosaunee were not pacifists. The great law of peace governed relations within the Confederacy, but beyond its borders, Haudenosaunee warriors were feared across half a continent. They fought with a sophistication that stunned European military observers. Hit and run tactics, ambushes, deception, mobility. They moved through forests that European soldiers found impenetrable. They struck without warning and vanished like ghosts. They mastered the psychology.
So yeah, we'll take a little pit stop here. Is anyone so far interested in what's going on here in the history lesson, or kind of going on with the Confederacy and how it's supposed to tie into the governments and politics nowadays, but it actually really fucking doesn't? Yeah, we're gonna take a pit stop, have a bit of a dart and a bong here, and then we'll get back into the history lesson. But if you are interested in what's going on here, or you have any input, let me hear about it. This is what the pit stops are for, so we can communicate, tell the world what's on our chest. I also have my wife sitting here, so I'll ask her, what do you think about the history lesson?
I think we should still live like that.
Fair enough.
Why can't we just live like that?
Fair enough. I don't know if we'll ever get back to that right now. I think Mark Carney's got his little clown transformer undead claws into Canada too much right now. As far as I think he's selling us out to China way too much. But yeah, craziness, I tell you. Cheers.
Cheers.
I also got some youth of the nation here. Let's see if they want to be part of the conversation. How do you guys feel about the new cool stuff that's going on with politics and how this might relate?
Well, now everything is against each other.
You probably gotta speak up. They probably can't hear you.
Oh, now everybody's against each other, and like back then, you didn't start war unless everybody talked about it.
Yeah, that's cool, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then sit down back then in a big hut. Every single chief from each tribe would sit down and they would talk about the war and they would talk about who's fighting and actual reasons to fight for it. Instead of actually just going to fight for some messed up bullshit, because that's child bullshit. They don't want kids to fight all the time. They keep giving trouble to kids for fighting on the street and stuff, but they're going out there and they're literally killing people and hurting innocent children, and other people have families and stuff, and like, that's just messed up. Like, that makes me sick to my stomach. Like, that's gross.
Absolutely.
Like, innocent kids and innocent babies that didn't even do anything over a simple argument over two grown adults. Like, that's disgusting. That's nasty. That makes me really sick to my stomach. Like, that hurts. That really, like, that's messed up that they would do that to, like, people, like, anybody in general, not just kids and fucking children, like, anybody. Like, that's messed up. That's child behavior, and I don't want kids to be acting like that, but they're supposed to be the grown adult, and the people that actually are supposed to be the role models and teaching the kids, but they're acting like hooligans instead of acting like role models. Like, that's messed up, and like, I'm 15, and like, I know that, like, that's
There you go.
gross.
She's
Like,
fucking 15 years old, and she knows better than the fucking government. 15 years old, everybody. She knows better than the government. That's fucked up. But yet we go to work every day, we pay our taxes every day, right? We have to, or else we can't afford to eat. We can't afford to send our kids to school, right? This is all fucked up, and this is the world we decide to live in. But I think the 15-year-old has a bit more to say. So let's hear what she's got to holler about.
And then, honestly, like, we're passing plastic around. Like, you could just, like, they used to trade for things or just give things. Like, one place would grow a bunch of this stuff, and other places would have a bunch of nice, good firewood, and they would trade. Like, we have a good fun. Like, Ontario has a bunch of good, healthy, like, good water and stuff. Like, and other places has oil and electronics and all that stuff. And like, why wouldn't we just trade it instead of fighting over it? Like, there's no point. It's easier to do it that way, and then nobody's getting hurt and nobody's fighting over nothing.
Well, it would make sense to definitely, apply some sort of free trade, but apparently the government likes their fucking money, so they'll try to money grab whenever they can, right? But it is what it is. But, yeah. Let's jump back into the history lesson and see what's Gucci.
Warfare, using terror as a weapon as effective as any arrow or club. The Beaver Wars of the 17th century demonstrated Haudenosaunee military power at its height. As the fur trade with Europeans intensified,
I don't know if y'all can see that. I had to pause for a minute, but it's hard to see past the, 1 sec. There. So this homie here, he's holding a spear, right? And then this homie back here is holding the same spear as this guy. And they're both holding another spear in the other hand. I feel like that was not how they ran through the woods. But that's just my opinion.
The Beaver Wars of the 17th century demonstrated Haudenosaunee military power at its height. As the fur trade with Europeans intensified, beaver pelts became currency, and beaver populations became depleted. The Arawad Haudenosaunee, particularly the Mohawk and Seneca, launched aggressive campaigns to control hunting territories and trade routes, attacking neighboring nations with devastating effectiveness. The Huron Confederacy, once more powerful than the Haudenosaunee themselves, were scattered and nearly destroyed. Survivors fled west or were absorbed into the Haudenosaunee nations. The Peyton, the Neutral Nation, the Erie, the Susquehannock all fell before Haudenosaunee expansion. Some were destroyed outright, Others were conquered and adopted. Their people integrated into Haudenosaunee clans through the ritual of condolence. This was the mourning war tradition adapted to new circumstances. When a clan member died,
So even back then they were adopted into a clan or something? They weren't just killed off as a prisoner of war. They might have killed some guys or some persons in this battle or whatever, but they didn't just off them, right? They adopted them to their cultures and taught them their ways and shit, and they became part of the families, whichever clan adopted them. That's pretty fucking cool if you ask me.
that death created a hole in the social fabric that demanded filling. A war party would be organized to capture enemies. Some captives would be adopted to literally replace the deceased, taking their name, their position in the family, their identity. They would become Haudenosaunee in every sense, fully integrated into the...
So logically, if I was to die in battle or some shit, and there was another dude my age, right, adopted into the tribe, he might just take my fucking name and then be adopted to my family, right? And then now he's like the family of that little family there. But that's also fucking pretty cool if you think about it, right? So it's like, oh, your dad died at war, but now I'm your stepdad, and I came from the tribe that just killed your dad. Hi, don't hate me. But nowadays, I feel like people hate their stepdads just because he fucking farts and smells funny. So, who actually knows what's going on in the world today? I wish Mark Carney would tell us, the fucking clown fuck.
community. Other captives faced darker fates. Torture and ritual execution served both spiritual and psychological purposes. The torture tested the captives' courage. If they faced death with bravery, singing their death song without showing fear, they were honored even as they were killed. Their courage would be absorbed by those who witnessed it. Their death would satisfy the grief of the mourning clan. To European sensibilities, this was savagery, but the Haudenosaunee saw it differently. Death in battle was honorable. The rituals surrounding captivity and torture were deeply embedded in their understanding of life, death.
Well, no offense, I think back then the Europeans really didn't like that law, right? Because they were still at that point enslaving people and making them work and shit. So, of course they didn't really like that or adopt it, because it doesn't make sense to, most common folk, most normal thinking modern day fellas.
And the spirit world. The Europeans who viewed these practices with horror thought nothing of their own public executions, their burnings at the stake, their drawing and quartering of criminals. Violence takes many forms, and every culture finds ways to justify its own. What made the Haudenosaunee particularly formidable was not merely their war.
I think if this AI robot person says it 80 more times, she might actually get it right by the end of this video. But it is what it is, I guess.
Skill, but their diplomatic sophistication. They understood that military power without diplomatic acumen was ultimately self-defeating. They built alliances. They played European powers against each other. They positioned themselves as the keystone that held the balance of power in northeastern North America. The French wanted Haudenosaunee alliance to secure their fur trade and protect New France. The Dutch needed Haudenosaunee cooperation to maintain their colony at New Amsterdam. The English, when they took over from the Dutch, recognized that controlling the Hudson and Mohawk River valleys required Haudenosaunee consent. The Haudenosaunee granted that consent or withheld it based on calculated assessment of their own interests. They traded with all the European powers. They allied with whoever offered the best terms. And they were not above switching sides when circumstances changed. The covenant chain became the framework for Haudenosaunee-British relations,
Almost
symbolically
closer.
represented as a great silver chain linking the Confederacy to the British Crown. This alliance was renewed periodically through elaborate diplomatic ceremonies involving gift exchanges, wampum presentations, and lengthy speeches recounting the history of the relationship. But the covenant chain was not a symbol.
Yeah, I'm sure somewhere along the way that chain and the treaties were mistaken so that they could benefit their pockets somewhere along the lines again. Because, in my opinion, this doesn't look like the European fucking awesomeness that they're telling us about now. The slave labor, and they're calling it work, and you gotta work fucking 40 hours plus a week, and you barely get to see your kids, but some stranger gets to teach them and raise them at school, right? And don't forget, after school, there's probably after school programs they gotta go to, right? Which is just another person raising your kids instead of you. While you're at work, another whole person's raising your kids. It's all done fucked up. The system's broke right now. But we'll go back to the old history lesson here.
Alliance. It was a complex web of mutual obligations and carefully negotiated terms. The British needed Haudenosaunee warriors to fight their battles against the French. They needed Haudenosaunee permission to settle new lands. They needed Haudenosaunee trade to maintain their economy. The Haudenosaunee, in turn, needed European trade goods, metal tool.
But when they were able to get into these franchises like the Hudson's Bay Company and stuff and just start manipulating the system, well then I guess they didn't need permission anymore from anybody, right? Or is that when they secluded us and stuck us all on reserves? Because at this point it's all a little confusing to me. But let's get back to the history lesson. Maybe we'll learn something new and exciting.
And weapons were superior to stone and bone. Wool cloth was warmer and more durable than hide. Glass beads were easier to work than porcupine quills. But they did not need Europeans so desperately that they would surrender their sovereignty or their land without negotiation. Haudenosaunee diplomats moved between Philadelphia, New York, Albany, Montreal, and Quebec with the confidence of representatives from a great power, because that is what they were. Colonial officials treated them as equals, not out of respect alone, but
and nowadays we're treated like a third, maybe a fourth class race of human. We're kind of like strangers in our own country. It's kind of a little messed up. Our laws were supposed to be built on native confederacy, but apparently they forgot about the common people along the way, and now we all suffer for it, which to me is fucked up. But we'll get back to the history.
Out of necessity, the Haudenosaunee could make or break
she's getting
colonial
closer.
ventures with a word. When Europeans gathered for treaty negotiations, Haudenosaunee
is what it's actually called, but I'm sure that's hard to pronounce for an AI computer.
Your 13-year-old son just said it perfectly.
Well, he's also been living with me for the last 13 years, so.
Shems brought wampum belts and spoke in elaborate metaphors, rich with symbolic meaning. They began with condolence ceremonies, clearing the eyes of tears, the ears of obstruction, the throat of grief, so that all parties could see, hear, and speak clearly. This was not mere ritual.
All speak clearly. That means we all have a motherfucking voice, which means we all have a right to say something. So the government in Canada can't shut our voice down. And that's what I'm trying to do on our channel. Our channel, because it's not just mine, it's everyone's. It's the world's channel. Jump on here and share your opinion, because you are the voice of the world, you are the voice of Canada. And we have a right fucking to be heard. So fuck them. Well, let's jump back into the show.
It was psychological preparation, creating the proper mindset for productive negotiation. They spoke of polishing the chain, keeping it bright and free from rust. They spoke of the path between their peoples, keeping it clear of all.
So, what do you think that chain looks like today? Like back then it was kept polished and clean and smooth and nice and awesome. Right? What does it look like today? What do you think it looks like today? Do you think it's all rusty and shitty looking and decrepit? Or do you think it's strong and shiny and supportive? Because at this point, I don't think it's that strong anymore. Because we can only be as strong as our weakest link. And Mark Carney wants to put this country in the hole. So I think he needs to hear from the people, and this is the channel we're gonna fucking let him know it on. We're gonna tell him what the fuck's up and how we actually feel. So don't be scared. Change your name. Jump on the comments. Let me know what you think. As I think Mark Carney's a clown who's trying to sell out Canada. And he's a motherfucker who makes you work 40 hours a week along with other governments of this world. Right? And he calls it work, but it's actually slave labor. They just repurposed the name. Right? This is fucked up. Anyhow, let's back to the history lesson, see what's Gucci.
Obstacles. They spoke of council fires, keeping them burning so that representatives could always gather in peace. Each metaphor carried layers of meaning, and European diplomats who failed to understand these nuances often found themselves at a disadvantage. The Haudenosaunee also understood demographic realities. European diseases had devastated their populations, as they had devastated all Native Americans.
So they weren't able to learn our ways or whatever and be a part of our governance, but they were still able to be a part of it even though they didn't understand, and they were still able to have a fucking say. So we allowed them in even though they didn't understand our ways, and even though they were just trying to extort us from the get-go. Right? And now they're trying to sway votes by letting all these immigrants in, and they're trying to manipulate votes and bills and pass them faster by allowing what they call floor walking, which historically has been known as lobbying, right? Just to happen freely amongst the political system. It's kind of fucked up and wrong. And I believe it starts with big corporations that just want to line their pockets. But let's get back to the history lesson.
American peoples, smallpox, measles, typhus, influenza, these invisible enemies killed far more effectively than any European army. By the 18th century, the Haudenosaunee population had been reduced to perhaps 15,000 people, from pre-contact levels that may have been twice or 3 times that number. But through the morning war...
Whoa! Putting beads on a little English fella. See, everyone is accepted.
And adoptions, they replenished their numbers. Captives from other native nations were adopted into Haudenosaunee clans. Some Europeans, particularly children, were also adopted and raised as Haudenosaunee. Many of these adoptees, given the choice to return to European society, chose to stay. They had found a life in Haudenosaunee communities that they preferred.
And no offense, how many of the slave Indian people or the slave Indian women that they took over to Europe really would have wanted to come back to Canada and live in their old traditional ways. It's weird. Almost 100% of the people that went over to Europe wanted to come back here and live by our laws and our ways. Right? And all the Europeans that came over to native tribes and native governance or communities, they were treated like equals just like everyone else. No matter what age or whatever. They were treated just like everyone else, their age, their own whatever, right? But nowadays we just gotta extort everybody. Old, young, disabled, non-disabled. They don't give a fuck. You gotta pay for food. They want to tax you. They want to take your money. It's all fucked up in the end. But let's get back to the history.
Referred to what they had known before. This adaptive strategy allowed the Confederacy to maintain its power despite demographic decline. A Seneca village might be half filled with people born elsewhere, but they were Seneca now, fully integrated and committed to the Confederacy's survival. By the mid-18th century, the Haudenosaunee stood at the height of their power and influence. They dominated the Northeast. They controlled crucial trade routes. They held a balance between French and British imperial ambitions. They were courted, feared, and respected by all who encountered them, but this position was precarious. The European powers were growing stronger, colonial populations were exploding, land hunger was insatiable. The demographic balance that had allowed the Haudenosaunee to play European rivals against each other was shifting, and a storm was coming that would test the Confederacy as it had never been tested before. The 7 Years' War, called the French and Indian War in the colonies, ended in 1763 with total British victory. France was expelled from mainland North America. The Haudenosaunee, who had allied with the British, found themselves in a new and dangerous situation. Before, they had leveraged the rivalry between French and British to maintain their independence. If the British pushed too hard, the Haudenosaunee could threaten to ally with France. If the French became too
So no offense, at the end of the day, the French and English didn't want to play by the rules that were supposed to govern this part of the country. So we got shoved aside. That's fucked up. Why'd we get shoved aside? So that they could have their war. We had rules. If you guys would have went by our rules, I'm sure we all could have got along and everyone could have a piece of this country. But we decided to what? Go over there and destroy French people and English people, and of course we helped, but we're loyal to the people that are on our side, correct? That's what he just said, so I don't know. Let's see what's Gucci.
Demanding they could turn to the British. This balance of power had served them well for over a century. Now, that balance...
But the biggest problem with that is, like, whatever European people they decided to let into their culture, right? Those motherfuckers were allowed to go out and to go back into European culture, like, you know, smooth butter. But the Indian people were definitely segregated for most of this time after. But let's go back to the history lesson, because I could be wrong.
Was gone. The British no longer needed to court Haudenosaunee favor as desperately, and British colonists, no longer restrained by fear of French-backed native resistance, began pouring across the Appalachian Mountains into territories the Haudenosaunee considered their hunting grounds.
Oh, another fucking thing is the Appalachian Mountains. If that's where a lot of this war took place, remember all the creepy crawlies and things that go bump in the night that people talk about in the Appalachian Mountains, right? You know, all those things? Yeah, what if those are like spirits of the native people that had to die up there? That's fucked up to think about, right? They're just screaming out because they're trapped on a mountain because of a war they didn't even want to be in the first place. Once again, I have a feeling that Canada gets sucked into a lot of bullshit that's not actually our fucking fault. Anyhow, back to the history lesson.
The Proclamation of 1763, issued by the British Crown, attempted to halt this westward expansion. It drew a line along the Appalachian Ridge and declared that colonists could not settle beyond it without native consent. The Haudenosaunee and other nations viewed this as a promise that their lands would be protected, but the proclamation was unenforceable. Colonial governments ignored it. Settlers ignored it. Land speculators ignored it. And the British government thousands...
So yeah, that's the problem, right? The problem with the land treaties and stuff. Now they're starting to be ignored. Like we, back in the chat, I think we just talked about it. Where they're deciding to build pipelines and nuclear power plants and data centers and stuff. Like, I'm sure that's all good infrastructure for Canada and stuff like that. But if the prime real estate for it affects those treaties that we made multiple fucking years ago, that clearly were documented somewhere throughout history, right? Like I said, I don't know how else they're gonna do it. They'd either have to build up and over the reserves or under the reserves, and I don't think either one of those, to me, seems like a very good idea if you think about it. Because, like I said, if you go up and over it, right, then if one of those pipelines breaks or whatnot, then it's just going to rain black water down on the old reserve as opposed to just leaking in one central area, maybe being able to be cleaned up before it affects too many people. But I don't know. The other option's going under the reserves, and I feel like if it breaks under the reserves, well then you're back into the problem with the water, right? You're leaking oil water, and we're expected to drink that, and we don't really, I don't know why, but we don't really have the best water treatment facility plants. So a lot of the people end up getting sick from oil spills and stuff like that. It's kind of fucked up if you think about it logically. And I guess there might be a third option, but this one seems to be the most pricey. You could go around each reserve. Therefore, you could use the crown land that seems to be spread out throughout Canada. Or you could just find a nice piece of crown land and put it on your nuclear power plant and your data center. But once again, I'm just not educated Canadian, unlike Mark Carney and his band of goons.
Of miles away and increasingly distracted by conflicts with its own colonists, lacked the will or ability to enforce it. Tensions rose. The Haudenosaunee watched as forests were cleared, as game was driven away, as their world was transformed by an influx of settlers who did not respect native sovereignty or native rights. Some Haudenosaunee leaders argued for accommodation, for finding ways to live alongside the colonists. Others called for resistance.
So unfortunately, yeah, we might have signed treaties and gave some land away, right? But at the end of the day, we didn't really agree to this, right? We didn't. So if you want to think about it logically and from a native's point of view, right? Our treaty's nil and void just on the simple fact that, like, you've already tried to cut our reserves down to the smallest possible acreage, right? And then on top of that, you're trying to use our resources and poisoning the people. yeah, I don't know if our treaty was signed based on that in mind. But once again, if they look 7 generations ahead before they make a decision, and we look 7 generations ahead from this current moment, after this nuclear power plant and database or data center or whatever the fuck they're deciding to build goes in, what do you think Canada's going to be like in 7 years after that? Generational, right? Generational 7 years. So, I feel like that right there is going to lead to a whole bunch of fucking problems, right? Nuclear power plants break down. They explode. They have nuclear fallout. That's not good for Canadians. Now you have a data center that apparently can only be run off fresh water, not ocean water for some fucked up reason. They figured out how to make the cooling systems out of water, but they haven't figured out how to make it renewable water, nor have they figured out how to make it use salt water. But I feel like with that, they're either going to need to add a water treatment facility or some other bullshit as well, because you can't just have a fucking a data plant sucking up fresh water and spitting out contaminated bullshit water to the people. But we'll talk about the water on the next episode. For now, we'll get back to the history.
Then came 1776 and the Declaration of Independence. The American Revolution split the British Empire and forced the Haudenosaunee to make an impossible choice: side with the British, their longtime allies, or remain neutral, or support the American rebels. The Grand Council met and debated. For the first time in the Confederacy's history, they could not reach consensus. The Oneida and Tuscarora leaned toward supporting the Americans. The Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca favored the British. The unity that had defined the Haudenosaunee for centuries began to crack. The decision was made to allow each nation to choose its own path, to cover the council fire and let...
And I feel like at this point here is directly when the Lucifer experiment took place for Canada. Right? If anyone's watched any of my other videos, you should be aware with the Lucifer effect. It's how good people can do bad things given the proper motivation. Right? And the motivation in this aspect, I don't know what the other native tribes were given or promised by the British, but I'm sure they were promised something wicked, awesome, cool, and at the end of the day, they're left with just as much as we are. So, either way you shake it, it's kind of fucked up. We'll go back to the video, though.
Each nation acted independently until the conflict ended. This was unprecedented. This was a fundamental violation of the Confederacy's principles. But the alternative was civil war within the Confederacy itself. The Mohawk, led by the formidable war chief Thayendanegea, known to the British as Joseph Brant, fought fiercely for the British cause. Brant was a complex figure, educated in colonial schools, fluent in English, a translator of Anglican prayers into Mohawk, and a skilled diplomat as well as a warrior. He believed that British victory offered the best hope for protecting Haudenosaunee lands from American expansion. Mohawk, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca warriors joined British forces in devastating raids on American frontier settlements. The Cherry Valley Massacre.
Our plan to protect Ontario is fighting for every steel and...
Well, little did they know that their laws were going to be used and abused to the best of their ability by the British. And they also would have been used and abused by the Americans as well. What should have happened at that point in history, in my opinion, is they probably should have banded together and just said, hey, let's form our alliance again, get this shit on the fucking go-ahead, and fuck both these guys, because this is some bullshit. But it's getting late, and I'm getting tired, and it's going to be a busy day tomorrow. So, if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and do all that crazy bullshit so we can stay on that algorithm. And you guys should go check out my other stuff on YouTube and TikTok. I'm known as David Hennessy, We the People, because we are the voice of the people. We have a say, and we do fucking matter. And Mark Carney and his band of goons can get shoved, because this is all fucked up and you're fucking up our world by making us pay way too much for fucking gases and way too much for goddamn fucking food and all that other fucking bullshit that you're deciding to do with your fucking band of goons just because it benefits you guys. But I'm out. It's been nice chilling, and I hope to see more people next time. Talk to y'all later. Peace.